Pruning tomatoes is not necessary, but it can be extremely helpful and beneficial to your plant, especially as the season progresses and we start to see more heat and more humidity, which actually can bring on things like blight and other diseases to your plant. When you thin out and prune your tomato plants, you are allowing more airflow, and you're also allowing for more of the nutrients to go to the fruit and less to producing vegetation. You want your plant to produce more fruit, right? Which is what you're harvesting and eating, versus a bunch of pretty full leaves. In addition to that, thinning them out will also help you to get more color on your tomatoes faster, so at the end of the season you aren't ending up with a bunch of tomatoes that have not turned on you yet. When it comes to the garden, it's very important to have your own style and your own rhythm in the garden space, but this is what I find to be extremely helpful. And in addition, with me doing vertical gardening like I do, it really helps to get more tomatoes in a row than if I had a big bushy plant. So what I do is I follow the stem that I am keeping all the way up, and as I do that, I'm checking the armpits of each one of these to make sure that there aren't any suckers. Right here you can see that there is a little sucker that's coming out of this armpit that I have not gotten yet. This is what you want to pinch off. So I pinch that off and I continue up each one of the ones that I'm keeping. So come over here. So right here, this is where it starts getting tricky. Now what I do is I keep the one that has buds on it already, and I cut off that other one, because I want the one that's already starting to produce fruit, because this is doing what I want it to do. That's kind of the main lead. So I will cut that off. This is now the top that's going to continue to grow. I go down and I go through the armpits of each one, picking off those suckers, making sure that there isn't any suckers along the stem that I'm keeping, which we've got all of those out. There's one little one here. And then come over here. I do the same thing. I make sure that I don't have any suckers in each one of those armpits. And it looks like I've gotten all of these. But I'm going to continue to just go up. Okay, so right here, you have a little tiny one that is beginning to start. You want to just kind of take that one off so that you don't get that other shoot. And then again up here, make sure we don't have any more. Okay, so that is the first portion of what I do for pruning my tomato plants. So what I do is I next go in and I start to thin out some of the leaves that I have so that there's not so much vegetation on the plant. I typically like to keep it to where there is one below and one leaf above where the tomatoes are gonna grow. And the reason that I do this, see how there's a cluster of tomatoes right there, and I'm gonna take and keep this leaf and that leaf. And the reason that I do that is so that there's still sunlight and photosynthesis that's going to that bunch of blooms, so that when fruit sets on, it is still getting the vital nutrients that it needs to grow. However, when there aren't any blooms, like down here, there isn't any blooms between those. So I'll go in and I'll actually take that off. You want to get it as close to that main stem as possible and cut that off. And the reason I do this is so that it continues to keep that airflow, like I was saying, and keeps the moisture off the leaves. So I'm going to go about doing that now. And this is specific to when you're vertical growing. I will go in my trellis and I will weave it in and out the opposite side and back in and out. With this one, I let it go too long. because it got really hot, and so there's not a lot of weaving in and out. This needs to be supported. Otherwise, when we get a gust of wind, this is going to be very fragile. Come in with gardener's tape, and I'm gonna tie this on to my trellis. I wanna leave it not super tight, but tight enough. Like there's still room if the stem wants to grow. It helps to adhere it to that spot. Again, this is very specific to the trellising tomatoes. So once I get up towards the top and it's thin and I feel like I can weave it in and out without damaging the plant, then I'll just go ahead and run it through that trellis. I like to keep this on the other side so it kind of helps pull that branch towards the trellis and trains it that I'm wanting it to go this way. And so you really want to keep an eye on this, but again, when it gets hot, these grow so fast. You want to try to keep it woven in and out if you can, but again, if not, you can supplement with attaching the gardener's tape like I did along here. I'll probably go in here because it's still wanting to kind of flip outwards, and I'll probably put one more piece of gardener's tape there just to teach my plant, hey, we're going in at this point instead of flipping back out. Tie that on. I kind of got it a really small piece, but you can see now it's staying on that side of it, and we'll just kind of watch it and weave it back in, let it grow up, weave it out, you know, and continue on as the plant grows. I have noticed when I was pruning this time is that I have ones that start off where it looks like a leaf. It goes to tomatoes in the center and then back to a leaf, where normally it just is a cluster of tomatoes without that like leaf. So when you're going through, make sure that you're kind of watching for that anomaly. I don't know what it is, so just keep an eye out for that so that you're not actually cutting off your fruit that's already setting as well. I hope that this video was helpful to you in learning my style of pruning tomatoes. I hope that it helped you to learn a few things about why I prune my tomatoes and what it actually does for your plants. Again, there is no one way to garden. Each person's gonna find their own style and their own things that they enjoy when it comes to gardening. And that enjoyment is what is really important, especially as these hot seasons start to come on and you get fatigued out in the garden. It's really important to enjoy what you're doing. To me, pruning the tomatoes is actually kind of a meditative thing. I just kind of listen to music, get in my zone, and I prune the tomatoes, and before you know it, it's done. But again, it's so specific to you and what you want from your plants and what you're looking to do. I find it helpful because I'm growing up trellises. I can fit more plants there. It's easy for me to maintain my plants. It's easy for harvesting. It's easy for checking for insects and any kind of damage that might be happening. Plus it really helps with the airflow, especially since I put a shade cloth on mine that's already restricting the airflow inside of the tomato aisles. So allowing airflow through the aisles is going to be extremely helpful to preventing blight and actually allowing my plants to last as long as possible. So if you have any questions, please comment down below. If you have used the pruning method or if you have a different pruning method, let's have conversations down below. This is how we can all learn and grow from one another and really make this a nice community and a learning space, because me myself, I'm new to the in-ground gardening. I've done container tomatoes, and this has been kind of the same method I've used for that as well, minus the tying off and weaving through the trellis. That part was specific to that. It's important that we don't shame people for having different methods or having questions or not knowing things. We all start somewhere. We're all beginners at one point, and I am myself a beginner right now. I'm still in the learning process, and I'm just taking you along my journey as I learn how to do these things. Thank you for taking the time to watch our video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And just remember that all humble beginnings bring wonderful and beautiful things. So don't be afraid to start where you're at and grow from there. Why were you looking at me? I was on a roll and then you looked at me and I just totally lost it for pruning tomatoes. So I hope that this was really helpful for you and just taught you a few things about pruning tomatoes. And stop. You can't move. It distracts me. Have a good day. Love you. Bye. That's a really rude thing.